Good afternoon, folks. How are we doing? Good to go? All right. So this has been a very stressful time for our friends and neighbors and fellow Manitobans in the Parkland region. I know that when I was in Swan River, a man approached the mayor and I, and he was quite upset. His home obviously damaged by having a torrent of water rushing through it. And he was very, very worried and stressed out about not just his belongings, though understandably that was part of it. It's also very much about whether he was going to be able to have the same quality of life that he had enjoyed previously. And so today we're here to share information about how exactly government is going to help folks like him and everyone else in the Parkland region, about the steps that are already available today, steps that we are going to be rolling out in the coming days, and also importantly for people, the very generous Manitobans who've been asking over the past number of weeks how you can help. We'll have a new initiative for you there as well too. So we're working together with EMO. We have Christine Stevens here today to talk about a lot of that good work, as well as the Canadian Red Cross and Team Rubicon. Right now, our focus is on helping families to recover as quickly as possible. And while disaster financial assistance arrangements have existed over many years in Manitoba, these have typically been programs that roll out over months after a natural disaster occurs, whereas what we're doing this year is rushing to ensure that help gets to you as soon as possible so that you can get back on your feet. So we do continue to encourage people to reach out to insurance as a first step, but you can apply for disaster financial assistance online using our website. And so far, we've received 1,800 applications for help from individuals in the flood-affected areas. Now, to these 1,800 of our fellow Manitobans, we have our finance department and EMO working through the weekend to put money into your hand. Starting in the coming days, there's going to be a $500 cash advance towards your DFA accounts, and this will be mailed out to you in the form of a check. In addition to the $500 check, you're also going to get a letter outlining some of the process that comes along with DFA and what you can expect. We also want people to know that you don't have to wait for DFA to start your repairs. As long as you're documenting the process with photos and you're making sure that that's going to be included in your application, you can go ahead and start to order repairs to happen. You can order building materials that might go into those repairs. You can start talking to contractors and getting those home repairs done ASAP. Basically, $500 is going to start rolling out to these 1,800 Manitobans so long as you've started the application process, meaning a piece of ID and the initial form that's required. That will help to ease some of the financial burden that we've been hearing about from a lot of people. Now, Manitobans are super generous. One of the questions that we've heard, including in this room during previous briefings, is how can other Manitobans help people across the country, really, who've been moved by these really stressful, traumatic images that we've seen of people in tears, people clearing out homes, people in floodwater. Well, today we're announcing that alongside the Canadian Red Cross, we're launching a fundraising campaign for the 2026 Manitoba floods. Now, this is an ability that you have to donate money to the Red Cross to help your fellow Manitobans get back on their feet. We are going to match this as your provincial government, dollar for dollar, starting with an initial allocation of $15 million. Now, part of what we want to do here is to give you, the people of this province and this great country who are so generous, the ability to help your neighbors, to put some of that emotion and compassion that you've been feeling into action by making donations. But part of what we're also trying to do here is to ensure that people who've been ravaged by these floods and have had impacts to their homes and to their livelihoods and lives are going to be able to get some financial assistance that may not neatly qualify or fall into programs like DFA. So this will be open to folks who've applied to DFA in the flood impacted regions, but the existing criteria for accessing DFA benefits won't apply to the money that's being raised. This is going to be a bigger picture effort. So when you've heard folks talk about the impacts to their homes, when you've heard about people talking about impacts to their ability to make a living, this program to donate money that gets matched dollar for dollar by your provincial government and is going to be administered by the Red Cross, that's your ability to help there. I also want to give a shout out to the Red Cross, who is going to be in the Swan Valley region this coming week, because they're going to be doing something called personal recovery planning. Now, this is a service that I really encourage families who've been impacted by these floods to take advantage of. The Red Cross have the expertise in all these government programs, all these social services that are out there, and this personal recovery planning that is available to you and to anyone who's been impacted by the floods this year allows you to sit down with somebody with the expertise to sort through how are you going to plan to manage your finances over the coming weeks. How are you going to maybe cash flow getting your basement repaired, starting with this initial $500 that we're sending out in the coming days, but then also being able to accommodate when a contractor's bill might come due or building supplies might need to be paid for and things like that. It will also help you plan for accommodations that you might need during the emergency period or in the coming days as well. It'll help you plan for mental health needs that you want to see addressed. We have mental health services deployed in the region, but folks might need some help accessing those, or for many of us in society, mental health and accessing supports for our mental health might be something new, and we might need help finding the front door, so to speak, so that we can get that level of assistance. And then, of course, maybe there's accessibility needs. When we're looking at homes that are currently being impacted by flooding or through the repair process, maybe there's accessibility considerations for you, your loved ones, for your family that need to be planned around. So the Red Cross will be there to help with these recovery plans next week in Benito and in Swan River, as well as Swan Valley West. And beyond that, it will still be a service that's available by phone after that. So that brings me to Team Rubicon. This is an amazing group of ex-military, ex-law enforcement, first responders. They've had reconnaissance teams in the area planning out what the needs are, and they're now going to start to deploy a greater number of boots on the ground in the days that make up this weekend. So there's going to be 5 teams of 25 people from Rubicon rotating in and out of the region over the coming weeks. We foresee this cleanup assistance and work that they're providing stretching at least until the 3rd week of August, potentially more. And that'll mean that you have up to about just shy of 40 people from Rubicon on the ground on a given day, but again, drawing from a much larger pool of workers and volunteers. So to give you a scale of the need right now, there's been 81 confirmed assistance requests received as of yesterday in Swan River and Swan Valley West, but Rubicon is now going door to door, so you can expect those numbers to increase in the coming days as well. So that will be available in Swan and, of course, in Dauphin and in other communities where people are looking at a gargantuan cleanup effort, and so we're bringing forward these resources today. So we know that there's a huge cleanup and reconstruction project that is now being launched by our neighbors and friends and family members in the Parkland region. We know that there is an urgent need for financial assistance. There will be a longer-term need to get people back on their feet. And of course, you have a lot of good people who've been asking how they can help. So today we're announcing that help is here, more help is coming, and that for those Manitobans of a generous nature in the rest of the province, there are ways for you to get involved in helping as well. So miigwech merci Thank you very much, and I'll turn things over to Christine, who's got more updates.
Thank you, Premier. So as of this morning, there are currently 48 states of local emergency. Right now, provincial recovery operations continue in Swan River and in the Swan Valley region as efforts transfer from response to community-based recovery. Currently, the Office of the Fire Commissioner is actively deployed and is coordinating closely with local authorities, Manitoba EMO, Team Rubicon, Manitoba Hydro, the Canadian Armed Forces, and other partners who are there to support recovery activities. There are currently 30 personnel deployed in support of recovery operations. OFC and Cantia 4 personnel and representatives from partner agencies are supporting the deployment of resources that are available on the ground, and they are currently manning the provincial command post. They also have a logistics trailer, high-volume hose trailer, boats, Zodiacs, and pumps, and other specialized equipment available on hand to support in recovery. Recovery efforts are being closely coordinated among many volunteering organizations in the region, including Team Rubicon, Samaritan's Purse, and Christian disaster relief organizations. And work is happening to align and coordinate those activities to ensure that there's maximum support and to avoid duplication. As the Premier said, Team Rubicon has now transitioned from initial mobilization activities into detailed recovery assessments. So they are knocking door to door in Swan River to determine if people need help cleaning their homes. If folks aren't home, a card will be left on the door so that they can follow up with Team Rubicon and request supports. We do expect supports from Team Rubicon to increase to over 30 personnel over the weekend. And they will be deployed currently until August 19th to the region to ensure that there's supports available. With regards to disaster financial assistance, 3 DFA programs have been announced for recent events. Those include a program for the June 6th to 8th event, the June 9th to 10th event, and the June 28th to July 1st rain events. $7.8 million in DFA funding has been advanced to 12 communities who have impacts under those 3 events. And next week, we will be advancing $500 advance payments to residents and tenants who have impacts as well. We have partnered with the Red Cross, who will be deploying with DFA staff to both Benito and Swan River next week. And in addition to that, I would like to highlight some of the provincial supports that we have deployed in support of recovery. An example that comes to mind is a request from the town of Swan River the other day for engineering expertise. EMO has deployed our engineering consultant today to the town of Swan River to conduct some high priority inspections for that community. Beyond that, we have provided well testing kits, have worked in partnership with the Red Cross to deploy cleanup kits for homes that need to be cleaned. The province has deployed mental health supports, provided technical advice, and we have coordinated with local authorities repair to provincial infrastructure to ensure access can be restored to communities. Some significant reopenings that Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure reports are related to PTH 5 at Wilson River, which restored the link to Swan River. PTH 83 north of PTH 57, restoring access between Swan River and Roblin. PTH 20, PR 366, which is open from PTH 5 to PR 485. PTH 83, south of Swan River. PTH 77 to local traffic only, and portions of PTH 10. They're reporting approximately 80 provincial roads or highways were damaged, and about 50% of those repairs have been completed to date. I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Christine. And as everyone knows, we also have a lot of communities dealing with wildfires in the northern region of our province. So I just wanted to provide some updates there that Obanabiwin Cree Nation has been dealing with an evacuation, and our thoughts are with them. And of course, some very challenging moments for that community. To Dooley Lake with the Saïse Dene of course, in a slightly different situation where they've now been able to start returning people. And so that's a positive development. But as we look ahead, we know that the weather forecast does mean that we have to take the wildfire situation in Manitoba very serious heading into the next week or so. So again, a lot of good work being done by the Manitoba Wildfire Service, the Office of the Fire Commissioner on many fronts. And I just want to say thanks to those folks who are out there battling the wildfires. I also want to say thanks to the folks who have been very patient and working through the evacuations on that side. And then, of course, to everybody who's dealing with the flooding scenario here. We're announcing new ways to help. There'll be more to come, but hopefully this provides some measure of reassurance to folks who've been dealing with a really, really stressful time. So I'll leave things at that in terms of opening statements, and we'll open it up to questions in the room here.
Ms. Stevens, the Premier mentioned 1,800 DFA requests, but do we know how many homes and commercial properties total that have been storm damaged?
I don't have a specific number yet.
Would it be accurate to say thousands?
I don't have an estimate right now.
And do we know how many people have been displaced?
We don't have that figure.
And do you know where people can access emergency shelters if they're displaced right now?
Emergency shelters are not required at this time. There's hotel capacity.
I have a few others, but I don't want to monopolize this conversation. Does anyone mind if I ask a few more of these? Go ahead. Mr. Premier, a couple of weeks ago you had mentioned that you didn't think that people would have to apply for insurance and that you were going to change the way DFA worked. Do you have an update on what you were talking about in terms of changing?
Well, no, people should apply for insurance first.
But some people who are not eligible, you said that you were going to change DFA and I'm not quoting you precisely here, but make everybody whole. Can you explain?
Yeah, the idea is we don't want anyone in rural Manitoba to be left behind based on these flood impacts. So I think we can share some details about that initiative. Yeah.
Sure. So in addition to the 3 DFA programs that I described, we also have established a Manitoba Flood Recovery Program, and this is a one-time grant program for homeowners and tenants that are in the hardest hit communities affected by flooding and rainfall between June 6th and July 1st. So that program is intended for all residents in the areas that will be highlighted in a bullet that either has been issued or will be issued very shortly. And supports will be provided for those who do not have insurance for their losses or whose insurance coverage is insufficient.
Is there a maximum amount there? Is there a total amount of money being put into this? And is there a maximum per household in this program?
So this program will mimic very closely the Disaster Financial Assistance Program in terms of program parameters. And so the maximum amount of assistance would be based on the assessed value of a home or the cost to repair damages, whichever is lesser.
Can you put out what is the total though? What's the maximum total you might pay out?
You know, that is based on inspection and evaluation. The amount paid out is determined based on impacts.
There's no maximum, no actual cap on how much a payout might be, or kind of any sense of what the average payout might be? Some kind of dollar figure so people can, I think there's a lot of confusion over kind of how much people can expect, so is there a kind of a rough? You know,
it's very unique and distinct to each circumstance and each claim. Some folks have very less complicated impacts that require a cleanup. Others have experienced significant structural damage to their home, so the range is broad and wide, and it's distinct to each claim.
You had previously announced $5 million forwarded to municipalities for DFA. Is that separate from this program?
So Christine had provided that updated number of 7, I think.
7.8 is like 5 million is part of that.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so the 5 million was sort of an initial amount that we talked about flowing to municipalities. And again, they have a lot of infrastructure too that they have to repair. We don't want cash flow to get in the way of getting people back to work or getting lives back to normal. And so that number's gone up to the 7.8 number.
Forgive me, Catherine, I just wanted to just make clear that that is separate from the assistance that will be going to individual property owners. That's not 5 million is the total pie that gets distributed, or 7.8 million is the total pie. That's just been some of the confusion that's been out there.
Yeah, no, it's not. Yeah, this would be separate. To some of the questions about the expanded help for people over and above normal DFA, we could call it. There's been an initial allotment of $15 million in terms of what that's going to look like. But again, that's what we're talking about as a first allocation.
Sorry, getting mixed up in numbers here. The $15 million is separate from the 7.8, or is?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And it's also separate from the 15 million that you work with the Red Cross on?
Yes.
So it's 37.8 million total.
Yeah, well, don't quote me on a 37.8 million total, because the total is north of 40, because it includes other DFA considerations. Yeah.
I have a question. You were saying that this is different from other supports you've had to deal with, like in cases of emergency that you had to react quickly. But we were here last year with the forest fires. How did last year not sort of inform the way you reacted this year?
Having a change in climate means that we have to change the way that we think about responding to natural disasters. And the way the DFA program was designed over the years was that the local community, meaning a municipality or First Nation, is the first responder, if you will, and then the province, with a cost-sharing element from the federal government, comes in later. And we're talking about months and months later to make a municipality whole. When you have annual wildfires, annual flooding, what seems like an increasing amount of severe storms, I think Manitobans' expectations have rightfully changed to say we expect assistance as soon as possible. And so what you're seeing our EMO folks do is respond to that need and get very creative with how government programs can be delivered. The idea of advancing money to municipalities is new. The idea of advancing money to individual homeowners is new. The idea of the province stepping up to be the first line of service delivery in some cases, while municipalities are also doing a lot of really, really great work. And I would still say the vast majority of being the first responder, like that's new as well too. So these are all ways that responding to emergencies is having to keep pace with a changing climate.
But last year, people still needed help immediately with wildfires. How did that not translate this year?
It has.
In terms of this, the one-time expansion of the DFA, is that how can people expect it to be expanded or change the program itself in the future? Or how is this kind of expanded program going to play in the future? Are people going to expect it to be another one-time payout in the future as well?
I think you can expect that when I meet with the other premiers and the Prime Minister in a couple weeks, I will be making the point that the way DFAA has worked in the past needs to evolve. And where the federal government brought in some unilateral changes to DFAA last year, I think our recent experience in Manitoba is showing that the average person out there in rural Canada, in urban communities, has a different expectation today. And we need to make sure that what I view as a primary function of government, which is safety and helping people to respond to natural disasters that they perhaps have never seen before, has to evolve with what we're seeing happen in our society and in our country today.
Est-ce que je peux demander de répéter en français ce dont vous allez parler avec les autres premiers ministres?
Yeah, I could do the follow-up first in English if you like.
I was just curious in terms of balancing out the personal responsibility, or if people expect the government to pay out, they may not sign up for private insurance. How do you balance those two?
So one of the reasons we're rolling out this additional layer of response is in some of these communities, they had a 1 in 10,000 year flood event, a 1 in 25,000 year flood event. And looking at what happened this month, some of these communities had another almost unprecedented level of flooding within a month. So on the one hand, that means there's a change in climate. On the other hand, among many other things, and this is pretty far down the list, but it still is important, it should serve to remind everyone that everyone in the province is at risk of overland flooding. And so I really strongly encourage people to take out that insurance. I know there's an affordability consideration there, but when we look at the way that parts of the province that have never seen flooding like this before have been hit this year, it should serve as a reminder to the rest of us when we're renewing our home insurance. And so we're going to have everyone work together on this. We're going to have first and foremost, government working to help you get back on your feet. But the insurance industry, the average homeowner out there, provincial, federal, municipal, Indigenous governments are all going to have to work together to make sure that we find a way to navigate through situations like this in the future.
Je vais juste demander des réponses en français. Vous venez de répondre que c'est frais dans votre esprit. Là. Vous venez de parler de ce dont vous alliez parler avec les autres premiers ministres des provinces et que vous alliez parler d'une différence que vous vouliez apporter là, de la manière que fonctionne l'aide aux sinistrés, l'aide financière, d'IFA, mais l'aide financière aux sinistrés.
Oui, à la réunion, la rencontre des premiers ministres à Charlottetown dans quelques semaines, je partagerai un message donc, parce qu'on voit des effets immenses du changement climatique, le moyen de livrer des appuis et des services dans ces situations par rapport des gouvernements provinciaux et fédéraux doit changer aussi. Et je pense que ce qu'on a vécu ici à Manitoba a nous montré un peu les besoins dans des situations d'urgence. Alors, c'est un message pour partager avec les autres au niveau national. Et puis, j'encouragerais aussi les Manitobains et Manitobaines, le secteur privé aussi de penser comment est-ce qu'on doit changer pour répondre au changement climatique.
Vous avez parlé justement de, quand on parle d'assurance pour les inondations de surface, là, est-ce que vous pouvez me parler de ça aussi, s'il vous plaît?
Bien, ce qu'on a vu cet été, c'est que tout le monde dans le Manitoba a la chance de voir ces inondations aux surfaces. Alors, la question d'assurance, de répondre que je ne serai pas dans une région affectée, j'espère qu'on pourrait changer cette expectation et de juste encourager le secteur privé, les citoyens et puis aussi, surtout maintenant, les gouvernements de travailler ensemble pour s'assurer qu'on aurait la capacité d'aider tout le monde dans la province.
And just on the Premier's conference, she's just on the phone.
What? Oh, sorry. No. Okay.
They're volunteering.
It's back to English.
Alrighty, well then. Premier, we talked about, this climate change and events happening over and over again. What can the province do, if anything, to help Manitobans prepare for the next one? Because if we're seeing people flooded, every other year, evacuated because of fires and properties being destroyed, what is the province doing to sort of prepare for climate disasters ahead? Is there a master plan for helping Manitobans become resilient other than just dealing with every crisis as it happens as quickly as you can?
We will be releasing our Path to Net Zero plan next month, and I think that will have a lot of the very long-term, decades-long time horizon actions that the government is going to take, including some concrete investments that we're going to make in the city of Winnipeg to help reduce our impact on the climate, but also to ensure that there's going to be resilience. And so I think part of how we ensure that we are going to help Manitobans for the future is to ensure that we are being flexible and resilient in the way government operates as well too. You're seeing, last year during the wildfire season, the innovation there, I would say among many others, was the One Manitoba approach. Up until 2025, there used to be two lines, First Nations over there, non-First Nations over here. That changed last year. And I think although it was a very devastating wildfire season, that was one positive lesson that we took forward out of it. This year, I think what you're seeing is there are many municipalities whose capacity to help could be outstripped by the scale of a natural disaster that we see today. And so it is the role of the province to step in and say, well, if there is an urgent financial need for homeowners, we're going to step up with measures like the $500 advance we're talking about today to put cash in hand. We're going to have the expertise of EMO on the ground to assist with engineering and troubleshooting. We're going to have the Red Cross there to help with administrative work at the municipal level. And we're going to provide that additional layer of capacity. And then we're doing the same thing in behind the scenes areas too, like transportation and infrastructure. So they're rebuilding these highways. You just heard the update from Christine Stevens here. But we're also along the way asking the question, okay, we've got this highway open again for people to be able to get to work and to go get groceries and stuff like that. But what do we have to do in terms of water control structures or raising the level in the future? And that's going to be part of our ongoing infrastructure planning. So I think the challenge of a changing climate is that government services are going to have to change as well. And part of what we're doing is learning on the fly as we start to more clearly understand the impacts, but also to try and plan ahead, particularly on infrastructure and energy policy decisions.
And Christine, are you resourced enough to handle all of the increases in emergency responses?
You know, my team navigated the biggest wildfire season in Manitoba's history last year, and we're working through this event too. Something I would like to say about mitigation, though, is tied to the provincial DFA program is an ability for people to build back better and for communities to build back better. So that means roads built to a higher standard. That means homes will be able to install sewer backup valves or sump pumps. So there will be resilience built in for Manitobans and for communities who access the DFA program under this event, and that's the first time that we'll be able to provide that to claimants under this program.
Any other questions in the room?
Yeah, lots.
Just quickly on the Premier's conference, is there anything else you'd be planning to put on the agenda besides DFA changes?
Yeah, I think the Gender-Based Violence National Action Plan funding is a high priority for Manitoba. So we'll be looking forward to try and not only work with the other provinces and territories who I know have a strong interest in this, but also to talk to the federal government. We're, I believe, in year 4 of a 10-year plan for what's called GBV NAP, and we'd want to ensure that there's the resources for us to continue supporting the really important work that happens in this space here. And then I think, you know, for us, we want to ensure that the national unity against the Trump threat is maintained, that we have the resources for healthcare and education at the same time. So it's a lot of priorities that we want to discuss there.
You'd be pushing duty to consult and talking to your fellow premiers about pipeline plans as well?
Well, I'm sure that will all come up. I'm sure the journalists will be asking about that. Yeah, so there's a lot of priorities on the economic side that we want to touch on. And you know, as I've often said, the economic horse pulls the social cart. So while we are going to be advocating for a strong Canadian economy, including a strong Manitoba economy, we've got to ensure that the healthcare and the education piece moves along as well too.
Do we have an estimate, Ms. Stevens, for the infrastructure damage so far in tens of millions? The public infrastructure damage.
We don't have an accurate estimate right now.
And Premier Kinew, the statement that you had made about the questions Carol was asking, back in budget time when we had asked Mr. Sala about deficits, and he said, "Oh, we're not expecting a big forest fire year this year, so we're not expecting that much of a problem." I mean, obviously that's out the window now. I'm not expecting you to tell me what the 26-27 year end's looking like when we don't even have a 25-26. But some people in various governments around the world have said for years that government budgeting, to the point of what you're saying for, has to be thrown out the window and more contingency has to be built in. Hundreds of millions may not be enough anymore. What is your government going to do moving forward now that we are going to have annual or semi-annual floods, fires, seasons, and, you know, heaven help us, pandemics.
Okay. Yeah, I think the first thing we're going to do is balance the budget. And part of that is to ensure that we have the fiscal firepower to be able to respond to natural disasters in the future. And so we're very much working on that fiscal return to balance. I can shed a bit of light onto your earlier question. Again, and this is not a specific thing, but this is maybe order of magnitude. Some of the impacts are being thought of comparable to 2022, when I believe the impact on roads and bridges and stuff like that was in the neighborhood of $300 million. So that's not a specific estimate. That's just maybe an order of magnitude number for people to start thinking about. And then you can look at what we're talking about here today with DFA and other forms of assistance being around $43 million. And then we have the wildfire response too, right? So from there, I think you can look at that. What is it going to mean when we get to public accounts? Who knows? There's also a ton of water everywhere in Manitoba. So is Manitoba Hydro going to have a higher net income than predicted? We'll see. But I think the point that you're making is a valid one, which is we have to expect more variability in climate. And for public policy planning purposes, that means more variability in expense. As an aside, that should also mean that some years we have a windfall year. We haven't seen that yet during our time in government, right? We have been dealing with tough situations summer after summer. But hopefully over the long run, Manitobans who rely on prudent fiscal planning will see that these approaches help to ensure that we have a strong and resilient society. Resilient in the face of natural disaster, but also resilient at the macro level so that we can, you know, grow our province into the place we want it to be in spite of what climate change represents.
Premier, can you give us an update on what the recovery plan is looking like for the Dauphin Hospital?
Well, it is a major, it's a major undertaking. I think maybe I'll start with some just like anecdote and then I can get into maybe more specifics there. So when I was in the Dauphin Hospital, the manager in charge walked me to the back and you had huge pumps running via these massive trucks that were pulling just huge amounts of water out of the basement. There was still a few feet of water in the basement, and you could see the water line had been several feet higher than that. And unfortunately, we had a big chunk of the electrical, we had services, you know, food services, among others in the basement, some clinical services, office space in the basement. You also had the IT, not just for Dauphin, but for the northern part of Prairie Mountain Health region, meaning there was an immediate impact on the Swan and, you know, Grandview and other hospitals. So hats off to the first layer of response from Prairie Mountain Health who managed to get the IT and the security cameras and the fire alarms for those other hospitals into a steady state almost immediately. Like, that is remarkable work that they did. As I walked through the hospital, I saw frontline healthcare staff working in completely dark rooms with headlamps on, looking at patient records and test results and stuff like that. So that shows you how hard the frontline healthcare staff were working. And there was a question about the MRI. Folks will know that Dauphin as a community fought hard to get an MRI. It's been there for a number of years now. Liquid helium at a very cool temperature has to be running through there, or the magnets are irreparably damaged. So there's a heroic effort to pull generators in and keep the helium cool to save the MRI in Dauphin. So I want to thank the folks who did that, both clinical and other volunteers and staff. So that gives you just a scope of what was happening in this hospital. It's the hub for the region, and people have been going all out to try and maintain machinery and equipment and space within this facility. At the same time, they stood up a triage center to replace the ER in the community health room or building off to the side of the main entrance. So this is just, I can't say enough good things about the doctors, nurses, the staff, the health workforce in Dauphin for everything that they're doing. I was told yesterday that it's going to be a 9 to 12 month repair process to get the hospital back online. And my immediate reply was, that's not good enough. That's not acceptable. So the people bringing forward that timeline are excellent. They've been doing amazing work. And now I think what we're going to do alongside them as government is to just lean in and give them the license. Okay, if you're rebuilding to a specific standard, let's talk about, is that a provincial standard, a federal standard? Is that a standard from a regulated health professional college? And let's see, is there a way that we can deliver the same quality and safety but get the service back more quickly? Are there things on the supply chain side that we can do? One of the things that's been identified, and I'll shout out the Mayor of Dauphin here, Dave Boziak, for bringing this forward alongside many, many people in the healthcare system. Getting lab services and getting x-ray back is a major priority. So we're leaning into that as well too. But then you get into, well, you can't just put an x-ray machine in a trailer because you need lead shielding. Otherwise, you know, there's the health impacts there. So is there a way that we can quickly move in lead shielding into a temporary space? So these are the nature of the conversations that we're going to be troubleshooting in the coming days. But for now, we know how important the Dauphin Hospital is, the Dauphin Regional Health Center. We're starting to get the preliminary estimates of how big an undertaking this is, and we are going to throw a ton of resources and time and energy towards accelerating that as much as possible.
Is there an update on timeline for DFA applications in Stonewall? Because we heard from people that they submitted their application like a month ago, but due to the number of applications, they still haven't seen inspectors coming over to assess. So is there like a timeline on this?
Yeah, the timeline is as soon as we can. And what I would say is those folks will be getting those $500 checks to help put money in hand to assist with the recovery efforts. And the other point is take photos of the repairs, and if you feel like moving ahead, go for it. You don't need to wait for the inspector to be there. If you choose to wait and the inspector is going to be able to provide assistance and you're going to pick that person's brain about, you know, how you might proceed with the recovery effort, then by all means. But we just want to reassure people you don't need to wait for us or for the inspector to go ahead with your repairs and to still be eligible for the DFA program.
Is there any concern at all about people abusing the $500? People hear a $500 check's going to be in the mail and might be tempted to try to take advantage of that. Is there any, I don't know, thing that you can do to try to sort of prevent people from abusing that?
Manitobans are good people. There's always a potential for a summer a Serb type situation again, but I think there's a lot of need out there and we have to respond. And I think that the fact that these folks have already applied for disaster financial assistance shows that these are folks who've already been thinking about need, and we're just going to move to help.
So people who've already applied would be eligible?
Yeah.
But not exclusive. Ms. Stevens, you had mentioned building roads up to a higher standard. Are there areas, particularly in Swan River or elsewhere, that you think the province should be looking at expropriations or not having people build back, or at least having them build back at much higher levels, even at their homes, not the roads?
You know, that's something that would have to happen in conversation with the community and with a homeowner. I don't feel comfortable saying that as a blanket statement. But if folks believe that their home's at risk and are interested in relocating, that's an option that could be available under the program.
Sorry, I didn't mean that in terms of, are there any that the province, even if you're not going to identify them, are there any areas that you're actually looking at right now already? Like, no, for example, we had some areas southeast of Winnipeg after 97 that move or build up, but one or the other. Are there areas that we're actually looking at that might be high risk now?
I think, this was a storm event, right? It was a deluge, which is really different than, being topographically at risk for river type of flooding. So this is a unique and distinct event where we wouldn't typically relocate people.
And I understand there's a lot of more of stress on the hydrologic forecast center in predicting something that happens in hours versus months, which is the case in Red River flood planning. But we haven't seen as many flood bulletins, and there have been times when information has been hard to come by. We've even heard it from people in the field, from people who are normally not the complaining sorts, and people who are the complaining sorts, but also us as reporters. Is there a reason we have fewer flood bulletins than you might expect throughout this event in the last 2 weeks?
That would be a question for the HFC folks.
I would stick up for our provincial officials who are doing amazing work. I mean, look at Christine. You've got the best of the best here, who knows these programs inside and out, and shows up to work expecting that she's going to have months to respond, and then she's got somebody out there running around promising everyone that we're going to help right away, and she's made it work. And so I think that any shortcomings in our flood response should be pinned on me, and all of the praise should go to the local officials and the folks like Christine and Fasaha and Kristen and everyone else who lead the disaster response.
I'm certainly not complaining about flood response. I'm just wondering why there's been less communication than we've seen in other emergency events. We even had a lot more ongoing last year during the wildfire season.
Yeah. So that you can pin that on me.
I'm looking for the explanation, not to blame someone, Mr. Breed.
All right, are we going to Zoom? Yeah.
Thank you, Premier. One reporter on Zoom from the Brandon Sun with one question, one follow-up. Alex Lambert.
Thank you. The parkland is in recovery mode, as mentioned a lot, but communities like Manitoba and Sioux Valley just got hit, and Brandon is bracing for a peak on Monday. How does the province feel preparedness has gone here in Brandon, and how might supports look for a flood in this city?
Well, I want to thank folks who've been very proactive in these communities. Mayor Fawcett has been great to work with, and we've had a good back and forth, and he's kept me very well informed about the activities to protect the community and the infrastructure from what we're seeing along the Assiniboine. I know that folks in Manitoba have been going all out and sandbagging and working to protect their community. Sioux Valley, much the same story there. So I think folks are doing a good job of trying to anticipate and prepare, and the support that you're seeing in the parkland will be there in Westman and other parts of the province should the need continue.
Do you think what's being done here in Brandon is enough at this point?
Based on the hydrologic forecast, I think Brandon is doing a good job of preparing.
Okay, that's it for Zoom. We'll turn it back to the room.
All right, back to the room.
Any questions?
Sure. Premier, how is... Oh,
Yeah, I mean, Brandon has excellent emergency response plans, and they, they've got this script. They're well prepared for this event.
Premier, you talked about the economic course again today. What's happening with the economic course to help you balance the budget in light of all the spending that's had to be done with disasters and the like?
Well, we know that hydro is an important driver of the economy, and having flown north a few times recently, looking at all the water that's in the hydro basin, they should be in a good position this year. We also know that they've got some major projects coming up. You've got the combustion turbines just outside of Brandon. You've got the HVDC project, which you put those together, you're going north of $10 billion. So that's huge. But we need private sector investment as well, which is why I've been working on the Churchill Plus project, working on the Mine Baby Mine priority that we have. And we're also working on some other large-scale investments in the Winnipeg area that we hope to be able to announce soon enough.
What did you think when Alberta announced their massive AI data center and you rejected one being built here in Manitoba? Do you have any regrets at all, or what do you think of the Alberta announcement and it being one of the biggest private investments in Canadian history?
I think we want Manitoba's economy to succeed in a way that aligns with our values. And what I've heard from Manitobans is that the decision to say no to a hyperscale data center has really brought relief and happiness to a lot of people for environmental and social and a variety of other reasons. So I think you're going to see Manitoba's economy continue to grow, to accelerate that growth, and to do it in a way that makes you proud to call this place home.
Can you say what you were doing in Nunavut?
Yeah, for sure. We did a press conference on it, but basically, Churchill Plus is a transformative opportunity for Manitoba. Part of the answer to your question about how are we going to pay for all the things we have to do here has to come from economic growth. In order for us to be able to build a large-scale project that involves ice-breaking capacity, we need the buy-in of people in the Kivalliq region of Nunavut. And going there to strengthen the relationship is about making sure that Churchill Plus can come online and help us with the economy and affordability. But it's also about recognizing the fact that Winnipeg, by geography, should be the beneficiary of all the economic activity coming south from Nunavut for shopping, for healthcare, for dental services, for post-secondary, for a variety of other things. Because we have neglected that relationship over the past number of years, that economic activity is moving to Ottawa and to Montreal and to points east. But you just look at what used to be the Clarion next to Polo Park, just off Portage Avenue, and you see Inuit syllabics on the building. That should give you an idea of the scale of potential investment we're talking about when we look north to our northern neighbor. Tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. So yeah, having a stronger relationship with the territory to our north is about a lot of things, but strengthening our provincial economy at a time when we want to grow and respond to urgent needs as well is top of the list.
At that news conference, I asked you what you thought about the pipeline that Premier Smith and Premier Ford proposed, and you told me you love Albertans, and I appreciate that. I don't question that.
Albert, yeah. Okay.
Could you please tell me what you actually think of a proposed route that would, if you take it seriously as more than just a line on a map, would go right like in between Westdock and Falcon with the pipeline?
Yeah, well, I'm open to talking about things that are going to be passionate projects that Albertans and Alberta are interested in. I love Alberta, I love Albertans, so we're open to having the discussion, but I think a lot of our attention is going to be paid to the much more close to shovel in the ground and close to final investment decision projects that we have on the go, like the combustion turbines and HVDC projects with hydro, like some of these developments in the Winnipeg area, like Churchill. So I think we're...
Shovels in the ground? Question mark?
Pardon?
Churchill's got as near shovels in the ground?
I say of any of the big projects you've heard discussed in Canada in the last few weeks, Churchill is closer to shovels in the ground than any of the rest, yeah.
So when are those studies of the icebreaker capacity and everything that needs to be done to the rail line and some sort of scope narrowing and actual cost projections? When are we going to see those?
Well, they're all going according to the initial timeline, right? So the Arctic Research Foundation icebreaker study, I think you should expect later this year. We'll probably have preliminary results from that next month. Doesn't mean we're going to share them publicly right away. We'll probably look at them for a bit and figure out, what does this all mean? In a very existential way, I would add. And then, of course, you've got the other feasibility work that's ongoing at the same time.
Okay, thanks, guys. Can I ask one last question? Just back to the floodings. Sorry. I'm looking at that 500 cash advance, and I'm thinking, if I've been out of my house since June 30th, $500 doesn't sound like much. Like, what can people do with that or access? What help can they get if they're not living in their houses? They can't really work. Like, sounds great, but after 10 days, that's like $50 a day. 500 cash advance. I'm just wondering what other programs can they access? These people, for instance, this couple in Grandview. What can they do except for that $500 cash advance if they need help?
$500 to put money in your hand today to help you out with your immediate needs. That's what we're announcing. And of course, disaster financial assistance, emergency social services, personal recovery planning from the Canadian Red Cross. And now the opportunity for you, the rest of Manitoba, to help out by donating and to see every dollar that you donate matched by the province. This will help to ensure that over and above those specific government programs that are already in flight, that families across the impacted regions will be able to get help as they rebuild from these terrible floods.
Thanks, guys.
One more.
Yeah, first.
Manitoba Métis Federation President Chartrand wants to put an MRI machine in the new building they just purchased. Would the province allow this or partner with the MMF on this?
As long as it's under the purview of the Canada Health Act, we're open to have those kind of conversations. And this has been the message that we've had with all sorts of folks, whether it's been about opening a private primary care clinic or maybe looking at surgeries. Here we're talking about diagnostic tests. For me, the question isn't about whether there's an MMF government ready to go. The question is just, does this make sense under Canada's law regarding health? Which means as long as the public is paying for it, then we can have a conversation about which way to deliver that service.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks everyone.